So I want to go to Dr. Robinson now because there's an interesting link to what you said in the poem, especially the last line about drums and what we're about to talk about now. Is there a strong uh, maintenance of the African roots in the language which is used, which was passed down to both Belize and Jamaica, and how is that maintained?
All right. Hello, everyone, and thanks for having me. Okay, so the African tradition is basically very strong, and the heritage speaks volume to our African ancestors. With our African slavery trade, they actually came to Jamaica, um, and that is where they basically, they couldn't speak the English that the slave masters were speaking. So what they had to do was try to come up with a language which speaks to both the slave masters and also, other persons who came from Africa as well. So the slave masters, they basically, separated the African slaves so that they could really, didn't speak to each other. So they had to come and okay, so the African slaves, they didn't really formally learn the English language that the slave masters spoke. They came from West Africa, and because of that, they had to try and learn to communicate with each other. So that is how, the language patois came about, because it's a mixture of English and also a mixture of the Akan language from West Africa. Dr. Santos spoke about the drum, which is basically the djembe drum, and that drum is, a strong African, um, it's a strong African instrument that they usually use in both Belize and also Jamaica. They use it to, as a form of entertainment, but it's also very deeper than that, because usually what they do is use it in a ritual. So they use it to like call down the ancestors and so forth. This drum is handmade by the African ancestors. They basically use goat skin to create the djembe drum. And also, one of the ways that the Jamaica tradition, African tradition continues, and also in Belize, is through the stories that, are told by the ancestors, and it is basically passed down through to generation. One in particular is the Anansi story. Now, the Anansi story is basically about this mystical creature who is in the form of a spider, and he also have, human traits. So when telling the story, you will know they would say like the Anansi speaks, or, they would do things. The Anansi is basically, a cunning person, let's say. So he would try to like, you know, undermine the other persons and try to basically trick them. He's a trickster. And in Africa, the Anansi is basically, a god. So he's like the trickster, the trickster of the god of trickster, they would say. So in Jamaican stories, you would basically hear about Brother Anansi, and in Belize as well, they would talk about Brother Anansi. So they both have similar, features in regards to the story. Brother Anansi usually would tell persons like, you know, one of the particular story that I can tell you guys is when he put the porridge in the sun. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. So he was the one that basically allowed the puss and the dog to hate each other, because he told the dog that he should put the porridge, you know, on the stove and it would get hot. And then he told him as well, you know, that if you put the porridge in the sun, it's the same, you know, heat that it's going to have, the same temperature it's going to have. And the dog went ahead and put it on the stove, and then the puss, you know, put it in the sun. And at the end of, you know, it all, when both the puss and the dog, they drank it, it was basically, you know, the stove is going to obviously make the porridge hotter, and then the sun would basically cool it. So he was the one. After that, the dog was actually upset with the puss, because he said that, you know, they both tricked him, and that is why dogs are always chasing the cat. So you know, we're very strong in regards to the African heritage. That is one of the way that it's basically, you know, come down to generation and allow us to remember where we're coming from. And also, you know, in regards to the stories, that was a way, you know, for the slaves to basically tell their children these things, so that they could get their mind off, you know, the fact that they were slaves. And this brought a bit of comfort to them as well. So yes, that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson.